So, Ashley, when you heard the word perfectionism, what does it actually feel like for you inside of your head?
For me, it feels like I'm kind of trapped in this cycle of like, I'm not good enough for this, or I really want to do this, but I'm afraid to because I'm gonna fail, is what it feels like to me. It just feels like I'm trapped in that cycle.
Yeah. So, do you think perfectionism for you shows up more as a fear, or is it more of like just higher standards for yourself?
It's definitely a mix of both, but usually for me, when I get stuck, it's because I'm afraid, because I'm afraid of failure, mostly.
And I feel like for me too, it's more like I like to say it's high standards for myself, but the reason that I'm so worried about setting those standards so high and trying to be perfect is because I'm afraid of what happens if it's not. So I feel like my high standards almost lead me into that idea of perfection,
Right.
and it's just kind of finding like it's a tricky balance, especially when you're just starting out and just barely learning about it. It's tricky to find that situation. So, what's the biggest lie that you think perfectionism tells you?
That I'm not good enough, that I'm not perfect, which obviously no one's perfect, but that I'm not good enough to be perfect.
And I feel like too on top of that it comes in a way that how do I explain it? It's almost like you're so worried about being perfect that you freeze on everything else, and then you go into that decision paralysis that we've kind of talked
Yeah.
about, and then it's just a never-ending cycle, and it's almost better to just get out there and try it than to overthink it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of going to cover what we talk about mainly in this episode. But as we get going, where does your perfectionism start? Like, what part of your life do you think shaped it the most?
Well, have I started taking music slash piano lessons when I was a year and a half. So that was always a big part of my life, but then I started to feel like once I started getting older that I wasn't as good as all the people around me. Whether or not they were older than me, it didn't matter. I wanted to be as good as them, and if I didn't feel like I was, then I felt like I was a failure. And I feel like that it started there, and when I was in even elementary school, if I would get a bad grade on something, I would cry and it was just the end of the world. And I feel like that has also showed up in other parts of my life as well a lot, and I feel like it's held me back a lot.
I feel like for me, a lot of mine stemmed from sports, especially soccer. Like when I started playing, I was 3 years old. And it's always the idea of no matter how much you do, you can always be doing more.
Right.
And I feel like that's a good mindset to have, but also if you don't have something to work towards necessarily, like one clear cut goal, then you kind of get lost, and then it almost makes it worse than if that mindset wasn't there in the first place.
Right.
And so it's kind of tricky finding that balance
Yeah.
of I need to work hard, and yes, there's always more that needs to be done, but also just because it's not perfect doesn't mean that it's not the right thing to be doing.
True. And another place that I feel like it shows up a lot in my life that I feel like a lot of people can relate to is body image. And I that started for a very young age for me. Like I was bigger when I was younger and like elementary school. And when people like kids my age started to point it out, then that was something that stuck with me forever, and then I felt like I wasn't good enough, and that has kind of driven me a lot of times into the fear of not being good enough.
Yeah. So, kind of along those lines, with that fear and everything, how does perfectionism in show up for you in your mind in your everyday life? Like what like things like overthinking or redoing or delaying things. How do you see it in your own life?
Well, I mean, like going to the gym, I recently started a 90-day challenge, and before that, it was like I was constantly starting over because I would miss a few days of, my nutrition goals, or miss a few days of going to the gym, and then I had failed. I was done. So I would start over, and I was just changing and changing and changing, and then it was just a never-ending cycle of not being good enough because I wasn't perfect in my habits.
So a lot of like just restarting.
Yes.
And do you think like a lot of that, did that lead to overthinking, or do you think the overthinking more so led to the restarting?
The overthinking definitely led to the restarting because I, like, especially scrolling social media and seeing all of these influencers, like, I'm not doing exactly what this person's doing, so I need to change and do what they're doing. But then I see another one and I'm like, oh, but I need to be doing this too. So it was a lot of comparison and overthinking, definitely making me restart all the time.
I feel like especially now in this world of everything social media, that it makes it harder for us to do everyday things because we're seeing how other people are doing their everyday things, and it almost leads to a sense of, okay, if I'm waking up at 6:30 but this person's waking up at 6, then I'm not doing good enough. And then it's like, okay, well, do I need to wake up at 6 or should I wake up at 5:45 because that's what this person's doing? But if I want to do a little bit better, I should probably wake up at 5:45. But then if I need to wake up at 5:45, do I need to go bed at 10 instead of 11? And like it just, that overthinking just builds up so much, and the comparison to everybody else on social media makes it so difficult. And I feel like that's a trap a lot of people fall into.
Yeah.
Is a lot of the times we see the best parts of people on social media, but not often do we see the worst parts.
Right.
And we're comparing our lowest points in life to their highest points in life. And
This
I feel
is
like
true.
that makes just everyday living very challenging just because social media is so prominent in our world, especially our generation.
Yeah, I agree.
So, along with that, what areas does it hit you hardest as far as routines, relationships, work? Like, what things do you notice it in the most in your everyday life?
Probably my routines. Um, or our relationship. Like, sometimes I feel like there's things that I could do better that I'm like, I'm just not good enough for him. But definitely every day when I'm going to the gym or when I'm running, I'm like, well, my mile's only 12 minutes, and so I shouldn't even run, you know?
Right. It's kind of hard to see the end goal
Yeah.
when there's always new things being set and you see things every day.
Yeah.
So, what does and what did perfectionism cost you emotionally?
Definitely my self-esteem. Just because I will start things and then never finish them, and then I feel like I'm less accomplished than everyone else because I just wasn't doing enough.
So, along with that, do you have maybe a specific moment where you know that perfectionism has really slowed you down in your life? I feel like for me, as we'll kind of give you a second to think about it. A specific moment for me that perfectionism really slowed me down was after my second ACL surgery. I had already come back from it once, and I had set the expectations for myself so high because I came back from it and I signed for a new college and I went out there and was performing, and I was one of the top scorers and leaders in the nation, that after I tore my second ACL and had to start over, I was so afraid of not getting back to that level that I was, that my whole recovery was actually slowed down because of it. Because I had, personally, I felt like I had done so well coming back from it the first time that I didn't know if I was going to be able to do it again. and it scared the crap out of me, and it really did. It delayed everything because I was so worried about getting back to the point that I was, that I almost stopped working as hard because of it. I don't know why, and it still doesn't really make sense to me, but it almost froze me up so much that I wasn't able to come back and perform like I know I could have because I was overthinking it so much.
Right.
Do you have any examples that come to mind of that, or you want to go on to the next one?
Let's go on to the next one.
Okay.
We'll come back to it if I can think of a good one.
What were you telling yourself in your head during the deepest moments where you were overthinking and everything? Like, what were the thoughts that were kind of running through your head?
The thoughts that were running through my head were things like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I should do this. What are people going to think of me if I do this? And I guess I think that way a lot. And with things like working out, or because one thing that perfectionism did slow me down on, let's go back to the last question, is how long it took me to actually start going to the gym. Like, you pushed me to go to the gym, and I was like, no, I don't want people to see me working out. I don't want them to see me have my bad form and learning all these different things. But what I didn't realize is actually nobody cares. And nobody's looking except for me.
Yeah.
So, having those thoughts of, like, what are they going to think of me if I do this, really has always held me back my whole life, because I've always been very self-conscious.
So, along with that, when you were in your own head the most, what did it cost you as far as, like, momentum, time, confidence? What things did you notice were slipping away the most?
Definitely my confidence and my progress. I wasn't making as much progress because I wasn't doing the things that I knew that I wanted to do, but I just couldn't bring myself to,
I think kind of, and I want to bring it back a little bit to what you said a little bit earlier about you were so worried about what other people thought. For me, for a long time, especially going through all the different injuries and surgeries that I have, I was so worried about proving myself to everybody else that I wasn't taking my own mental health and my own... I wasn't pushing my own timeline. I was pushing my timeline based on what I thought everybody else was thinking. When in reality, it's kind of like you said. Like, once you start looking at it, people aren't focused on you near as much as we think they are. And it's not that they're trying to be rude or that they don't care, but everybody has their own problems. And everybody's trying to work through their own things in life that they really don't have time to pay attention to us. Like, for me, it's my world and everybody's living in it. But for Joe down the street, it's his world and we're all living in his world. Like, people in general are very self-centered, and that's not a bad thing. That's just the way it is. But it's kind of like you said, we're the only ones that care about ourselves, but we overthink so much that we make everybody else out to be the bad guys when they're just trying to survive too.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like we overthink it so much, and I feel like that's one thing that a lot of people do, is they try to turn it on everybody else, almost as an excuse for themselves not to go do something.
Yeah, I agree.
And kind of what I've noticed with it all too, just as we've been talking and thinking about, is perfectionism makes you feel productive when really you're just going in a big circle.
Yeah.
Like, we might feel like we're going up and working towards something, but for me, I'm a researcher. So if I find something I want to do, I'm going to research that over and over and over again. And I found myself going down really deep rabbit holes, and then I go back to the thing where it's like, well, this guy said this, and this guy said this, so I need to do more research on this. And then pretty soon I've spent 2 weeks on a decision that really should have only taken me maybe even a day to make. So I feel like a lot of the times we use researching almost as a way to push off our decision because we feel like it's going to be better for us. So, kind of along with that, that's where I found like the jackpot rule that I've been talking about a ton, and I'm going to keep talking about it a ton because it really has made such a big difference. But it's 7 seconds. You make a decision in 7 seconds. Whether that's, okay, I'm going to go on a run today. Okay, that's my decision. 7 seconds. You have 7 minutes to act on that decision. So whether that's getting out of bed and putting on your shoes, or maybe you have your shoes on but you're wondering if you should tie them or take them off and go back in bed. Or maybe it's actually walking out the door. In those first 7 minutes, you have to make a decision that's going to help you take the first step. And then within 7 hours, it's how do I feel now that I've done that thing versus how do I feel if I didn't. If I stop at the second 7 and it was, okay, I was going to go on a run, but after I got up, I actually changed my mind and took my shoes off and went and laid in bed and scrolled on TikTok for an hour, how did that make me feel? The rest of the day, I felt like crap because I wouldn't just go outside and go on even a 5-minute run. Like, it doesn't have to be anything crazy, and it doesn't have to take your whole day, but it's comparing how do I feel after I have done the thing versus how do I feel after I didn't do the thing. Because I've always found that for myself, if I actually get out and do something or take that step and then do the action, I always feel better about myself because I'm not, then I don't regret it.
Yeah.
So that's where it's, to get a jackpot, you need all 3 sevens, and if you get 2, you were close, but it's not there. And so that's one thing that's really helped me in my life as I've tried to do those steps, is it just keeps me from overthinking, and it pushes me to make that action before I have time to really overthink it.
Yeah.
So now, as we're going, was there a time you did something before you felt ready and it actually worked out?
Well, I didn't feel like I was ready to get married at 19 years old, but we did that anyway, and it's been the best decision ever. Like, there's never going to be a time in your life where you feel ready for anything, like, especially big things, like moving away, going to college, starting a business, starting a podcast, posting on social media, and getting married for sure is a big step, but it's been the best decision ever. And if we wouldn't have taken that step, where would we have gone, you know?
Right.
Because we weren't ready.
Right. And that's, on that note, I know for me, it was like, as we were kind of talking about it, I kind of went back into that, like, overthinking, over-researching, asking everybody's opinion. And everybody had a different opinion. There was people that told me that we should have got married before because we dated for 4 years. There was other people that told me that we needed to wait because you were only 19 and I was only 22. Like, because outside of our area, that's not normal.
Yeah.
But also dating for 4 years and then not getting married as soon as you can isn't normal either. So we were kind of outside both norms. And at the end of the day, it really came down to just kind of how I was feeling. And like, I literally was asking anybody and everybody that was married, like, is this the right decision? Do I need to do this? How did you know? Like, obviously not everybody's going to know the same way. Some people get married after 2 weeks and some people date for 7 years. And like, it's different for everybody. And those feelings that I was having was definitely me just overthinking the decision that at the very beginning I knew. Like, I knew once we started talking, it was like, okay, I want to marry her. But then it was like, well, crap, maybe I don't want to marry her. Like, this is a big step, you know?
Yeah.
And same type of thing. I should have just gone with my gut because it was the same decision that I ended up coming up with anyways. But it would have saved me a lot of stress.
It would have saved us a lot of time and but we're still young, so it's okay.
Yeah. So, what surprised you the most about how that kind of turned out?
I thought that I would feel so left out and like I was being left behind by all of my peers that are still single and living with roommates, which living with roommates was a lot of fun, but I feel like I'm in a more mature place in my life where I can really focus in on what I want and what I need to do. And that really surprised me a lot because I thought that I was focused then, but I really wasn't at all.
Yeah. And I feel like there's a difference too, because a lot of the people that I was worried about, like, they don't even exist anymore.
Yeah.
To me. Like,
it's like our whole circle is completely different because we have we pretty much have the same goals, and
right.
And not everyone else that we're around does. They don't have quite the same values that we do, or, So it's a lot easier to focus in on what we really want when you're next to someone who also wants those same things.
Yeah, and I feel like our inner circle outside of even just me and you has evolved a lot, even from when we first got married to now, because now the people we talk to and the people we surround ourselves with and do things with all have very similar goals. And even though they're on different parts of their own journey and everybody's a different age, I feel like we are very consistently around people that are working towards the same things, whether that's with our faith or whether that's we started a business, and also two of my best friends that we hang out with all the time started a business, and also my other best friend, who's also my uncle, started a business, and he's been very successful, and he's had a business for 20 years, and the farm that I work on is my grandpa's, and it's his business. Like, everybody that we surrounded ourselves with have very similar goals, and so it's not like they don't understand. Because before it was like, well, they're going to be annoyed because we have to go do a podcast episode, or they're going to be annoyed because we're trying to post on social media a ton, or they're going to be annoyed because maybe we can't go over in hot tub tonight because we have a business call to get on. Like, I was so worried about those things that I wasn't even considering the fact that everybody we surround ourselves with has had to do those same things or is doing those same things, and it's okay. And I feel like that's been a big help too, is surrounding ourselves with people who have the same goals, because it makes it easier for us to all progress and move forward and reach those higher goals that we're working towards, because everybody understands.
Yeah.
And it's always easier when people understand.
Yeah, and I think tying back to having to, like, perfectionism and comparing myself to other people, I feel like it's so much easier to not compare myself because, like, before, I felt like I needed to be working a full-time job because everyone else that I was around was doing it, which is great, but that's just not where I needed to be at the time, And now we're around people that are also starting their own businesses or have started their own businesses, and I feel a lot more supported, for sure, and understood, rather than working a full-time job and not having time for anything else.
Yeah. So now kind of diving into this a little bit more, especially with like the business side and maybe the content and the people around us. But why do you think, or first of all, do you think that imperfect actions build confidence faster than perfect actions?
Absolutely. Because there's no such thing as a perfect action. No matter how much research you do, no matter what you do, you're not going to have a perfect action. You've got to just take the jump, because how are you going to learn if you don't just do it? Like, how are you going to learn how to deadlift if you don't just do it? You can't, no matter how many videos you watch on that specific thing, you can't do it, you can't learn it and understand it unless you go and actually do it. And I think that's the same for just about everything.
That's like, when I think about it, I always go back to soccer. And it's, no matter how much practice I was doing, and no matter how many times I was training by myself, the whole goal was to train so that I was game ready. But no matter how much you practice, until you actually get into a game, you're never going to be game ready.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you understand that with volleyball as well.
Right.
But it's sometimes we worry so much about practicing that we never jump into the game. And without jumping into the game, how are you even going to know if you're game ready?
Yeah.
And even after playing hundreds of games, I still never felt game ready. But I also know that I was much more prepared because of the previous games that I did versus people that maybe sat out or withdrew themselves because they weren't ready.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like there's a big difference there.
For sure.
And I think a lot of it comes from confidence, comes from actions. It doesn't come before actions. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense.
So, along with that, why do you think the imperfect actions actually build confidence faster than planning?
Because the confidence comes from knowing that you just did something that maybe you weren't prepared for. Because if you went into it scared, if you went into it unsure, you came out of it saying, oh, I just did that and I didn't even plan, I didn't prepare, I didn't do any of this. And I was successful. Or maybe I wasn't quite successful, but at least I tried.
Right. And another thing for me, too, is it's like most of the time, when I do something before I'm ready, especially if I achieve it, and I do whatever task it was I set out to, it's like, man, I just did that. Like, I crushed that. But if I overthought it, and then I did it, it's like, well, that wasn't near as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, or you've set your expectations too high, and you're like, well, that wasn't quite as good as I thought it was going to be.
Exactly. I feel like overthinking can almost diminish the goals that you're working towards.
Yeah.
So, has there been a moment in your life where you felt like, or you realized that I can't keep living like this anymore?
So I had a full-time job as a CNA in a long-term care unit. And the job was great. It was good. Decent pay. I had really awesome friends there that I'm still friends with, and I met some amazing people. But during that time, I had a miscarriage, and that was really hard on both of us. But where I was still working at that job, and I was just under constant stress, it was really hard for my body to get back to normal. So up until I quit, I hadn't had a normal cycle. I hadn't had anything. And for reference, this miscarriage was in September, and I quit at the end of December, and I still had not had a normal cycle or anything. And as soon as I quit and I started taking care of my body and taking care of my mental health, I had a normal cycle. And it was like, in hindsight, I didn't realize how mentally taxing and how hard on my body that job was for me. And it's not like that for everyone. It isn't always like that for everyone. But for me, it just wasn't the right fit. It wasn't serving me anymore. And at that point, that was kind of the breaking point where I was like, I can't keep working here, and I can't keep putting myself under this stress, or I'm never going to heal, and I'm never going to get better.
And I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of that, not a lot of it, but there was a lot of realization that came after the fact for both of us, because at the time, I mean, I'd been pushing you to quit the job for a while.
Right.
But I don't think we also, understood quite how hard it was for you, but also how hard it was on our relationship, especially during the whole miscarriage situation. Just the additional stress of everything, it was a lot. And so kind of building off of that, what do you think you were really chasing with that job? Was it more a mental thing for yourself of, I can do this and this is what I'm working towards, or was it more of it emotionally almost felt like a safe space for you?
It honestly felt like a safe space, because in my mind I was like, what am I going to do if I'm not doing this job? What is my purpose if I'm not a CNA? If I'm not taking care of people every day, what's my purpose? And also, right before I quit, I switched my major from nursing to sport and exercise science, which was another moment for me that was really hard. But I think we're going to get to that in a minute a little bit more.
Yeah.
And it was more of, what am I going to do if I'm not doing this, you know? And the scariest part for me leaving was trying to figure out my purpose, you know? And that's something that we actively do every day. But that was just a big realization when I left.
And I feel like for me too, for the longest time, it almost feels, I felt like if I didn't have a very clear-cut purpose and I wasn't working towards a very clear-cut goal, then I didn't matter. And this life wasn't worth living. And it almost made it harder to even set goals because I just tumbled down that hill of, I don't have a purpose, so I'm not good enough, and I don't have a goal, so why am I even doing this?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, during that time frame as well, there was a lot of stuff that happened on my side of things that was hard on our relationship, and it got to a point where I was barely even getting out of bed to go to work in the morning. And then once I was done with that first job, I took my time and I was almost late every day getting to my second job. And at the second job where I'm interacting with people all the time, I was going through the motions, but I was not there. Like, there was a month there that's just a complete blur because I literally didn't feel like there was any point to life anymore. Yeah. And kind of what snapped me out of that whole thing was the first time I went back to the gym with my trainers, because I was coming up with excuses for 6 weeks. I was supposed to go 2 to 3 times a week, and for 6 weeks, every time I was supposed to go, I'd wake up in the morning and text them, hey, I can't do this, I gotta work, or hey, I can't do this, I got homework. And I would literally just go lay in bed for another 2 hours until I had to get up for work. Like, I was coming up with excuses to try and just get away from my problems when I was really just digging a deeper hole for myself. And that first day that I actually went back to the gym, I remember sitting there, and I love my trainers. I've been with them for 5 years now, from the very beginning. And outside of you and the family and brothers, and they're my best friends. Like, I've spent more time with them over the last 5 years than I probably have with 90% of the family, which is kind of crazy. But I just remember my one trainer, Justin, I got there and he pulled me to the side and he just said, "Are you okay?" And like, I broke down. Like, I lost it, and I ranted to him about the miscarriage and about the injuries and about getting cut from a team that I had worked so hard for, and about being lied to, and about avoiding and saying no to other opportunities that I had for us to maybe move away and go start a new journey. And it was a lot. But after I was done having my little session with him, he just said, "I know you needed that time for yourself, but I think it's time to get back to work." And like, in that moment, and it still gets me kind of emotional thinking about it, but in that moment, it went from, poor me, why does this crap keep happening over and over again, and why did I have to lose that baby, especially since it's kind of a miracle that we even had the opportunity for that in the first place. But I was able to shift my mindset from that to, how lucky am I to have 2 jobs to work at, and how lucky am I to have trainers that are literally my best friends that could care less about me going to the gym, but they care about me as a person. And how lucky am I that at the farm I get to work with my grandpa and I'm with him every day. And how lucky am I that from that job I get to go and work with people who are excited about what's going on every day, and the people that I work with, like my coworkers, are also my best friends. Like outside of work, that's who I go and hang out with, and that's who we go and hang out with. And it was like almost an instant mental switch for me, and that line of thinking has changed everything for me in the last 6 months, especially because it went from poor me, the world's out to get me, God doesn't care, everything's against me, to how lucky am I that I have an opportunity to wake up and do this every single day. So back to your kind of realization and everything, what did you finally realize that you had to accept in order to grow and progress out of that situation?
I had to realize that my success slash self-worth doesn't come from a job that I go to 4 times a week that I don't even like, My worth doesn't come from something that doesn't make me happy. And I realized that that's not what I wanted in my life, and so because of that, I changed my major, I changed my everything, really, and took a whole new perspective on life that focuses more on me being happy and us being happy and us growing in our relationship, rather than I've got to go work this job in order to be a good person, know?
Yeah. So kind of along those lines, let's talk about you switching your major a little bit, because I know that was a pretty big decision for you, a pretty big decision for us, and I know it wasn't easy. So kind of walk me through that whole situation a little bit.
I had been set on being a nurse since I was probably 14 or 15, and I centered my whole life around it, my whole, probably even personality around that. And
you were going, like, you did all of your classes in high school and everything for that as well.
I did, right? a lot of dual credit classes in high school, because I was so sure on what I wanted to do, until I worked one job at an assisted living, and I was like, oh, I really, this isn't making me happy. I think it's just the environment. And then I switched, and the environment was better at this new job, but I still wasn't happy, and I still didn't like the line of work that I was in. Don't get me wrong, I love helping people, and I met some of the most amazing people, most amazing residents ever, and they changed my life for sure. But through all of that, I realized I really just, that's not what I wanted to do. And my parents are very supportive. They're the best. But they really did want me to continue with nursing. And it was hard because I didn't want to disappoint them. And I didn't want to disappoint you, which wasn't a valid concern because I know that you would support whatever I wanted to do. And so would my parents. But it felt like I was disappointing everyone around me when I decided that that's not what I wanted to do, because I've been working towards that since I was 15. And so when I did decide to change my major, I felt such a wave of relief. Oh, I really don't need to meet these expectations that I've made up for myself in my head, that I need to be as good as this person, or I need to graduate early, I need to do all of these things. So after we got married, I took a semester off because I just didn't know what I wanted to do. And that semester off, we did a lot of time thinking and praying and deciding what we really wanted to do. And I landed on sport and exercise science. And I am studying things that I actually enjoy and that I'm not just doing it because I feel like I have to. And I think that that's such an important thing, that if you aren't doing something that you really enjoy or you even care about, then like that's okay if that's what you feel like you want to do. But I feel so much happier doing something that I know serves me and is something that I'm passionate about, and I have been passionate about for a long time.
And kind of to build off of that, I think for me personally, I came to a similar realization, and that's why I wanted to start the podcast, and that's why I wanted to start the business and the brands and everything that we're kind of building, is because I kind of came to that similar realization, like, why am I doing these things to make other people happy if I'm not happy?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, if I'm not happy, then really are the people that are telling me these things going to be happy? And if they're happy that I'm not happy, then why in the heck am I associating myself with those people? Like, they need to get out of my life. I need to find new people. And I think that's been the biggest switch for me. And it's helped so much. It's kind of like we've talked about before, like, it's okay to be scared and it's okay to move scared. You just have to move, and you have to take that step even though you don't know where it's going to lead you.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of ties it back into this whole idea of the project and Project Mind Muscle, is that life is a project, and our bodies are a project, and our mind is a project, and every single part of life that we're doing is a project in one way, shape, or form. And no matter how much we do, there's always going to be more. So kind of to tie that all back into Project Mind Muscle, is everything in life is a project, and everything in life we have to take action before we get clarity. And we're never going to get that clarity if we stay stuck. And if we're stuck in a situation where we don't want to be, then it's not going to happen, and it's not going to be happy, and we're never going to improve like we need to. So kind of tying this all back in, I want to talk about switching the perfect mindset to the project mindset, which is something I'm super excited about and something that I've kind of found for myself, and I think we found together as well. So what does progress mode and project mode look like for you?
For me, it's realizing that there's never going to be a right time to start something, or there's never going to be a perfect way to do something. And as long as I'm making progress towards something that I want, or a goal that I have, or anything, I am in progress mode. And I think that as long as you're not staying stuck, as long as you're always moving in the right direction, or even if you're moving in the wrong direction and you haven't found your right direction yet, whatever that may be, I think that you're in progress mode. And that's really just the best place to be.
So what are your personal thought swaps that have helped you break that spiral?
I have really started thinking more for myself instead of thinking, what is this person going to think of me? Or am I going to disappoint these people by not doing the thing that I first set out to do? Like, by not going to nursing school, are these people going to think that I'm weak? Are these people going to think that I'm not doing it because I can't do it? And really thinking more for myself and for what's going to make me happy instead of what other people are going to think is the biggest mindset shift that I've made.
Cool. So what would you tell someone who wants to be excellent but keeps waiting to feel ready?
Quit waiting. There's never going to be a right time. There's never going to be There's never going to be a specific sign that you need to go do this one thing. I mean, sometimes there is, but there's never going to be a perfect time. You just have to start. You have to take that first step. Just don't wait anymore. Just start. Use the jackpot 777 rule and take your first step. Take your first 7.
So now with that, I want you to give everybody a 24-hour challenge that I want it to be something super simple but also kind of scary for them to get them out of their comfort zone and get them into that project mode.
I know that there's something that's been on your mind, or on mine and yours mind. There's something on everyone's mind that you're putting off or you're thinking about all the time, but you don't want to do it, or you keep looking into it and you're like, maybe I'm not good enough for this, maybe I'm not ready for this. Take your first step towards doing that thing, whatever that might be for you, whether it's going to the gym, starting a new job, quitting your job. Take that first step and make your life what you want it to be instead of what everyone else wants it to be.
Sweet. So there's the challenge. And remember, perfectionism isn't always a bad thing, but it can turn into a trap if not controlled. So take that first step, even if you don't know where it's going to lead. Use this challenge as that first step if you haven't already, and we'll see you in the next one.